Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's chat some Badgers now with our guy, Mr. RJ Cardinal, who's joining us this morning. RJ, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. What's going on with yourself?
Not a lot, dude. Pretty, looking at this Badger basketball team, man, coming off of a win against Nebraska. I know they fell to UCLA before, but I'm sure you saw this. We've talked about it a couple times here. John Rothstein's tweet last night kind of comparing Wisconsin's offense to the two Final Four teams.
Yeah, I did see that. Pretty comparable stats there. And, it's a 2-year evolution into the offense Kirk Penny is brought in. And it almost makes you wonder that whole coach in waiting thing for Joe Krabbenhoff, because he's been offered some other jobs that he hasn't taken. It's not like he's the one who brought in this new offense. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not saying we're anywhere near Greg Gard not being here, but interesting to see how the coaching dynamic shakes out as things move along here.
You mentioned Kirk Penny, and that was my question I was going to bring up to you, and you kind of answered it there. But we hear about Kirk Penny and the influence that he has had on this offense. Is it straight up just Kirk Penny and what he's brought over from what he learned across seas and that style of offense? Is that the number one factor of why this Badger team is averaging 82.5 points per game, which is 10 points more per game than the national championship appearance team from 10 years ago?
Yeah, and I'm not sure it's solely Kirk Penny and the new offense, but, we're definitely seeing an uptick in threes. This year we're seeing an uptick in made threes, which is always great. You have players who are in the off-season we've seen development from. Carter Gilmore is making threes, and it's not like he was a bad player. He was a great scorer in high school, and now stuff's coming out in terms of his play that we hadn't really seen in the first couple of seasons. Kamari McGee was 27% from three over his college career before this season. Now he's darn near 50%.
Yeah,
it's like ridiculous just seeing the development, I guess, and it's kind of odd because you got rid of Dean Oliver. You brought in, I guess Kirk Penny was an analyst last season. I believe he's just on the coaching staff now. And then you brought in, what's the other guy? The international.
Oh, the former D2 coach. Yeah.
But who's got the international ties? Brought in, got an international to sign mid-season here, whether that was a signing period one or not, or an international signing. I'm not sure how that really goes. You're looking at a team that it seems like where you have some coaches who are really set in their ways and just bring guys in, that Greg Gard saw a need for a change and is willing to make that change and has made that change. And we now are seeing the dividends pay off for something we saw last year where we were wondering why this team was taking so many threes. And we continue to see players who come from other programs and have pretty darn good statistical years. It's almost like this staff knows what they're doing in the transfer portal, even if they're not getting the top transfer portal targets or targets that have connections or to the state or things like that. And, we can see that in John Tanjay alone. We've seen an uptake in free throws made where, that had been a big thing under Bo, they were making all these. And you have Gard even saying, we haven't changed anything in that terms. We're still taking the same amount of free throws in practice that we have my whole time here. So it just seems we're on a year where everything's clicking. And, in this day and age in the transfer portal, because, even Wisconsin's recruiting class, we thought Freitag was going to be playing a little more, but, he seems to be in high spirits, at least on social media. You have players all saying, hey, your time's coming. So, one of the real reasons he came here was he's got a pretty darn good relationship with Coach Guard. So, but yeah, we're seeing, and even some of the guys who came in via the transfer portal aren't really getting minutes. So you have about a rotation of 8, sometimes 9 guys that are doing pretty good for this team.
You mentioned Freitag there, and that was actually a question I was going to bring up and kind of relate it to. How much do you think, because, after Chucky Hepburn had left, you're like, man, we're going to have to count on him maybe to, Daniel to be a big-time contributor this year, and that hasn't been the case. You got John Tonje and Blackwell, but how much has the emergence of Kamari McGee this year been such a boost for this team? I mean, you go from last year where he was averaging 8.4 minutes per game to this year he's averaging 22 minutes per game, and he's up in scoring too.
Yeah, it's always one where you liked him on the field for the defensive side of the ball, and I don't think anybody had anything against him being on the court, because usually that meant some good defense was coming to play. But like you said, that new offensive spark he's putting in there, earning more minutes and all that. Your other guys, Tonje and Blackwell aren't true point guards, but they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
All your guards right now, I'd say, aren't true point guards. But with Tonje, Klesmit, or Blackwell, you don't really have an issue with any of them really taking the ball up the court and being that floor general. Maybe Klesmit at times, because he tends to make some passes that I think he wants to make for highlight reels. And it's not like it's selfish. He sees an opportunity, but maybe doesn't see the defender. But yeah, with the guards who we've seen handling the ball this year, all 4 of them, including McGee, I don't think anybody really has an issue with them not being true point guards and being able to handle the ball and get the offense going.
Mm-hmm. It's just weird for me to see, RJ, when I look at, scoring offense, and I know it's 29th, but just to see a Badger basketball team top 30 in points per game on the offense and in the entire country is still really weird for me.
Top 4 still in defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a pretty darn good combination.
Exactly. Like, it's just, it's weird for me to see that. And I think, for anybody who maybe hasn't been following along with Badger basketball yet, this is what they're missing. I think it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, and like we talked last week, still no quote-unquote bad losses.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken care of all your quad 3 and quad 4, and I believe quad 2. I don't think they even have a quad 2 loss right now. But, you are 4-4 in quad 1s, and then the rest are all your wins. So really, it's statistically one of the better teams in college basketball right now that nobody's talking about. But like you said, the tweets from John, why am I blanking on his name now?
Rothstein.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
He's trying to put it out there. I wish he'd rather not. But, at least somebody who is a basketball guy is talking about the Wisconsin Badgers finally over halfway through the season. A team that, unless there's an absolute implode, should be making the tournament no matter what. But you'd like to see this team continue to be on the rise. And, the rest of the way, you have one quad 3 game at home versus Washington at the end of February. Other than that, everything's a quad 1 or 2. So, it's a pretty tough schedule here, especially when you look at it and you have the run of at Purdue, home versus Illinois, and home versus Oregon, in a 7-day span, I think.
Yeah.
So, that's looking like a tough one. You got, and that's not to say we're about to go play Maryland tomorrow. At Maryland, and Northwestern on the 1st. Never an easy place to play. You got Indiana coming in. You got Iowa on the road. It's going to be a tough way down the stretch here the rest of the way. And in these final 11 games. So, buckle up. It's gonna be a fun ride, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a couple of down games? Probably. I mean, Illinois has had our number as of late. You have to go to Mackey Arena. That's never easy. Oregon, we've had some battles with in the NIT and in the NCAAs. They're now a conference opponent, so that'll be interesting. Michigan State, and then you end with Minnesota and Penn State. So, and Minnesota's streaking right now, or at least playing much better than they have to start the season. So, yeah, I mean, for everybody who wants to think that, other conferences are probably better than the Big Ten right now, I'm not sure that's possible to look at, because I'd say from top to bottom, the Big Ten's looking as tough as some of the other quote-unquote powerhouse conferences this year.
Yeah, you mentioned that streak of games of, starting on the 15th at Purdue, Illinois, Oregon, then you get Washington there, then you're at Michigan State. So, I mean, from the 15th to March 2nd, that is just that should tell us a lot about this team, too, before they head to the big dance, I would imagine.
Yeah, and you know what? Thankfully, you probably won't see them, any of those, until, the Sweet 16 or Elite 8.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, fingers crossed, because, I mean, when was the last time Wisconsin made it out of the first weekend?
Right.
But still, it's like you said, with Rothstein's tweet and the comparable stats to the Final Four runs, it's stuff we haven't seen in a while. And, I mean, again, Wisconsin against Nebraska made the second or third most threes of the year, behind the 21, the 19, and then they had just had 17 made threes against Nebraska. So, I mean, it's a team. Even, I mean, at least when they lost to UCLA, they were still scoring in the 80s. So, I mean, it wasn't like a blowout. You had, in your one blowout, technically, 12 points to Marquette, and that's not a bad loss. Against some good teams, and people are all pointing out their wins aren't against teams above 500 or at 500 or whatever. Well, they're blowing them out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're not close games for the most part. So it's an enjoyable brand of basketball to be watching right now.
Switching over to hockey here quick, RJ. Starting off on the men's side, over the weekend, going up against number 10 Michigan at home. They got the win Friday night, tied but fell in the shootout against them on Saturday, and that's 10th ranked Michigan. Assess how you view that weekend and leading up into a big Friday-Saturday series with number 4 Gophers coming up.
Yeah, we're talking about an overall below 500 team still. They're 11, 12, and 3. And, in conference play, they're stealing points still. They're getting points every series. I think the only one they didn't get points in so far this year is home versus Minnesota, where they lost both games, but still played them pretty close, if I remember. What was that weekend? You lost 3-2 in regulation, and then 3-2 in overtime. So you stole a point versus them still. You still got a point in that series. You had a run where you didn't go without a point in conference play the whole first go through your conference. And then when you started up again with Michigan State after break, you still got a point in East Lansing. So, I mean, every time they're taking points, and it's a team we're starting to see score, because I mean, we've seen some blowouts, and we've seen, like you said, Friday night 5-4 against Michigan, came from behind. They were down 2-4 and ended up winning 5-4. So it's a team, I think, after you had an influx of 13 new players at the beginning of the season, they're finally clicking and finding their spaces. Quinn Finley, who I'm pretty sure won't be here next year because he'll probably be either at the end of this year, maybe signing a contract with NHL club to go play at the AHL level, or if they still tell him, hey, come back for another year. Hopefully we have a booster who's willing to keep him around so it doesn't end up like William Lightlaw over at Michigan. But it's in talking to some people around the hockey program, they think Quinn Finley's next step is signing a pro contract and getting ready to head towards the NHL. So, and this weekend, you're heading to Minneapolis. Your aim is a split, but, in watching some of the games, because, I think Minnesota just got swept by Michigan State over the weekend, or at least split. So, there is a chance there. I know it becomes a pretty raucous place up in Minneapolis. They do not like the Badgers. And, they'll show out for the Wisconsin games, whereas as of late, even on Minnesota weekends, you don't have too many hockey fans showing up. This year you did, which was nice to see, but still, until there's consistent winning, Kohl Center won't be completely full. But at least there's hope this year. And like I said, you're 11, 12, and 3. You got, how many more series do we have? 4? 1, 2, 3? Oh, 4. Yeah, 4 series left. 2 on the road, 2 at home, and 2 are against the bottom feeders in Penn State and Notre Dame. So hopefully within there you can get some wins, help Mike Hastings still finish above 500 for his entire career. And then see where it goes, because I haven't looked at the pairwise yet, but that's what's used for the NCAA tournament. Hopefully, you can put yourself in a nice position to at least be considered for an at-large berth if you don't have a little bit of a run here in the Big Ten tournament, which right now, being number 4 in the conference, you are hosting a first-round series, and it'd be nice to see Wisconsin do that. It has been a while since Wisconsin's hosted a conference playoff game.
Yeah, no kidding. So, and then the women's team kind of continues to roll. They only got 3 more series left of their regular season. Minnesota Duluth coming up, then you got the Gophers, then Bemidji State after that. So
yeah, and they're still outscoring their opponents by 125 goals. So 25-1-2. It's not a bad way to go about it. And it's looking like it's just going to be a run to the national championship for a 3rd straight year against Ohio State. And it's awesome to talk about that kind of success year in, year out. And it's a program that's just a perennial power, and it probably will be until we see Mark Johnson retire, whenever that'll be. And the good news is it'll be a job that I think any coach would be lining up to take over. And you just got to find that coach, but that's hopefully a long time down the road here. It's just awesome to see what kind of stuff can happen on the recruiting trail in terms of bringing in the talent where, we've talked about it week in, week out, where your top 3 lines could all be number 1 lines at other universities. So, yeah, just awesome to see a commitment to winning and actually going for a championship year in, year out.
RJ, before I let you go, I got to mention this too. Something you don't want to hear from a program, the women's basketball team. I know it's been a news story in the last 24 hours or so about some player accusations against the coaching staff and such. And this was a women's team. Earlier in the season, we were talking about the starts this season that they had, and it was off to a really good start. But now, they've lost 8 in a row since essentially they've gotten into the Big Ten portion of their schedule, right? So it's like this not a great picture right now. I know Wisconsin officials said they're going to be looking into these former player accusations against the coaching staff, but not necessarily great news you want to hear coming out of that program.
No, there's some pretty damning stuff from the TikTok story post, whatever it's called. I'm not on TikTok, so I wasn't too upset when everybody was worried about it shutting down. But when you have somebody saying the coaching staff made me sign over my privacy so they could look over my therapy sessions, dictated what she could not and could not say in her therapy sessions, made her sign things that other players on the team didn't have to sign, purposely left her off trips to like the Bahamas and other away games without any reason. I mean, you have to do an investigation into that to see what is actually true or not there. Apparently, the likes on the TikTok posts, a lot of other former players who had left the program were in support of it, and there have been quite a few girls who have left the basketball program after they were signing and they were considered players who could turn the program around, and then they left without any comment or anything like that. And something we haven't really seen is any sort of media availability for Marissa Mosley. So, you kind of wonder what's going on here, and it's really not a good look, and it never is when you hear one side of the story. So hopefully we hear something from Wisconsin. I know they made a statement saying investigation's going on, can't make any comments on it. So we'll have to see what we're talking about when they can make comments and when they get their findings. And I mean, I guess the first thing we could hear is whether the coach is fired, or if they call a press conference at a weird time, might have some news on something. So,
yep.
But like I said, who knows how long that investigation is going to go? I mean, you'd have to be in contact with Tessa Towers. You'd have to be in. That's whose TikTok it was. You'd have to. I mean, you'd probably like to talk to some other girls who left the program just to see what their experiences were. But yeah, it'll play itself out. But right now, it's a pretty damning accusations towards Wisconsin's women's basketball coach.
Absolutely. Hey, RJ, we appreciate the time as always, buddy. Good stuff. Enjoy the rest of the week, man. And hey, we'll catch up with you again soon. Okay.
Yeah, we'll probably be talking about it next week, but either way, whoever wins the Super Bowl, a Badger will be winning the Super Bowl.
That's, I was thinking about, I'm glad you brought that up, because I mentioned this yesterday and I was talking to a buddy of mine really quick here. Isn't it nuts, and in a good way, to think about all the linebackers that are having big-time effects on their teams in the NFL? I mean, yes, the TJ Watts, you got Van Ginkel in Minnesota, TJ Edwards, Zach Bond, Leo Chanel, Jack Sanborn's kind of a part-time player, Nick Herbig as well. I mean, to think about all those Badger linebackers making big impacts in the NFL right now is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and we fired that staff, but whatever. Those are all previous staff players, and say what you will, whether it needed to be done or not, and from inside things, sounded like it needed to, because Paul Chris didn't want to make changes, but still, glad Wisconsin can claim them, but it's also not the same coaching staff who is developing those players into what they are today. Mm-hmm. So still awesome to see Badgers doing well in the NFL, to at least allow players to be like, oh, where's that guy from? Wisconsin? Maybe I should look that up.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's just, especially like the Zach Bond story is so cool too. With New Orleans, they kind of viewed him as just special teams. He goes to Philadelphia, and now he's like an all-pro. It's just, it's nuts.
He's in a contract year.
Yeah,
so,
he's gonna make bank.
It'll be interesting to see what Philly does with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I read somewhere if they do like a transitional tag or something like that, he's owed like 7.5 or something around there for. And I don't even know if that's the number. I just saw something that they have an option to do it, or he's going to hit the free market and make a boatload of money somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good for him though.
Could pick him up.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So, Oh, dude, hey, appreciate it, man, as always. Stay cool, stay warm, however cold it is down there, I don't know. But
we're going to be up in the 40s today, 40s tomorrow, 50s on Thursday.
Man, golf course is going to be opening soon?
Right?
Appreciate it, buddy. We'll catch up with you soon, okay?
Absolutely. Sounds good. We'll talk to you later.